कर रहे हैं.
वो तो है, of course. Anirudh, welcome. Anirudh is
We
here
have
too.
to build the assets over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, Anirudh.
Hi, Anand.
Hi.
Good to be here.
Perfect. Welcome, guys. So I thought I will give your introduction, but I will rather let you talk about your journey. So I'll just briefly start. Guys, we have Ashutosh Sharma, Naspers. We have Anirudh Singh, Alpha Wave, and Ritesh of Stellaris. I mean, you guys know Ritesh already. Welcome, guys. We have three pioneers of our industry. Ashutosh set up the Naspers India office. Anirudh started a new platform entirely for Alpha Wave. And Ritesh set up his own fund, right? I mean, and already in the last 2.5 years, is already in the second fund, massive close. So, guys, pleasure to have three of you. We have three different aspects of VC world playing out in front of us. And today's session is about how to think of your career growth, right? And what lessons, inspirations we can derive from these three pioneers of our industry. I'll just start with Ashutosh. And Ashutosh, just tell us about how did you what the 20-minute VC guy asked the question, right? Like, how did you stumble upon the wonderful world of venture capital?
Yeah, thanks, Anand. First of all, I'm great to be here. And a reasonable portion of my VC career overlaps with Anirudh. Both of us were together at Norwest, so
yeah.
so very excited to see him here as well. Coincidence. After my MBA, unfortunately, I will not be able to bring a sort of very unique insight as to how I thought about VC, and I was born thinking about being the next Pramod Haq or Vinod Khosla. None of that, honestly. My idea post my MBA was to come back to India, and all my recruiting was around that.
Achha.
And I had 2-3 options. There was one product management leadership role with Intel. At that point in time, Intel used to run this program called Accelerated Leadership Program. I had something with one of the old school companies in India. And then I had third one with Qualcomm Ventures. And in my extreme stupidity, I was still wondering what I should be doing and which one of the three should I pick. And I talked to a few people, and everyone said that, look, it's a no-brainer. The Qualcomm Ventures role, you won't get it if you don't take it now. If you go on a different path, it'd be very difficult to come back, and it's rare to have this right after your MBA. And I took that advice, and the plan really, Anand, was to give it a shot, to figure out if this is what I want to do. And I think, like everyone, the first few years were all learning. I still remember my first week at job was I met Subrata from Axel, and we were looking at this company, interestingly, gaming company, and I used to like every company that I used to say as a boss. Ye to bada hai, ye game badi hai. So, but yeah, I think that was the starting point.
Super, perfect. Ashutosh, if you are so humble, we'll not be able to convert into a talk show here. Thoda spicy karo aap usko.
ठीक है.
Anirudh, over to you. Sorry, you're on mute. Anirudh.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So as Ashu mentioned, we overlap at Norwest. So very excited. Obviously, you and Ritesh are the real pioneers of the industry, I have to say. So very happy to be here. So my career started in 2009. I graduated from my MBA at the perfect time, right in the middle of the subprime crisis. So I happened to intern at this fund called General Atlantic during my MBA. That was my first taste of investing. And uske pehle, I really didn't know what investing is about. I just heard on campus that this is supposed to be really cool. So I got the offer. So I went and tried it. I really liked it. And I thought, this is amazing. I should, do this full time if I get the opportunity. But then 2009 was obviously not the time to be looking for finance jobs. So I ended up joining, and also after my internship, when I came back to campus, I was just trying to figure out what else to do. So I happened to intern at CIIE. This is the
Ahmedabad.
IMA incubator, yeah,
Yeah.
which was run by a gentleman called, who I'm sure a lot of people know, Kunal Upadhyay. He runs Bharat Innovation Fund now. So Kunal was also an alum, and he was running CIIE. So I ended up working with a few startups over there. So post my MBA, I joined Deloitte in the corporate finance department because I thought this is the closest to finance. So let me be in finance, and then hopefully I'll get something in investing. And then 2009 Diwali, I think I just messaged Kunal, Happy Diwali, and he messaged back saying there's a job opening at a VC fund. Are you interested? So, so literally it was as random as that. And so I said yes, absolutely. And at that time, in all honesty, I did not know what VC was about, because this is 2009, right? The asset class was just about coming up. The startup, the ecosystem was very, very different. And my exposure had been to GA, which was obviously bulge bracket, etc. So I looked up VC online, what it's about before my interview, and you know, so I met Alok at that time, who was running the Canon India office. So I joined Canon Partners. I was there for a couple of years. Very, very interesting times, because so many companies, which, you know, Ola cabs, Free Charge, Taxi for sure, Lenscard, all these big companies, which now Ashu will invest $200 million in. They were all just about starting out.
Yeah. This is 2010-11, right?
Yeah, correct. This is the start of the e-com wave, right?
Yeah,
The first
yeah.
real wave, I guess. So I went there. Then I wanted something. This was like Series A, B type investing. So I wanted something a little bit closer to GA, and so I ended up joining Norwest Venture Partners, which was which did more, you know, early stage to public markets. So spent some time over there, and but yeah, so that's, I spent a fair bit of my career over there. That's where, you know, as Ashu also mentioned, we overlapped. I spent 7 years over there. So that's where I guess I really grew up as an investor in that sense. So, but that was the start of my career. Yeah.
Nice.
I wonder, Anirudh, what the interview with Alok was like.
How long was it?
Yeah, no, it was, I think I used to work in energy, oil and gas and things in that sector at Deloitte. So Alok was like, okay, it was far removed, right? Technology investing. So quite a very different.
Yeah. Ritesh, over to you.
Sure. Hi everyone. Someone had said my video is coming out funny. I hope it's clear now.
Yeah, it's good. Pretty good.
Great. So my path into venture was also very serendipitous. It was not. I wouldn't say it was linear at all. In hindsight, I justify it as everyone needs to explore in their 20s, and I even have a name for it. I call it the Odyssey. But in reality, I was just confused in my 20s. I was in the technology industry doing various things. Started off in engineering, in electronic design automation. Thought that I liked business a little bit better, so moved into sales. Then, because there was not much, I couldn't see myself being a salesperson all my life, so I went to do my MBA. Then it was clear to me that I wanted to be in technology because I liked it, but what I wanted to do in technology, I was not very clear about. So I moved into product management after my MBA and worked at both a large company as well as a startup. Realized that of everything I had done till that point, I enjoyed the startup stint the most, even though the startup actually eventually did not work out. But it was the most fun I had had till that point. So I decided I need to stay there, stay in the startup world, not only in the technology world. But there was no grand plan. I was a little bit enamored with the venture capital industry, and I'm talking about 2005, 2006, when the VC industry was just starting out in India. And frankly, I knew nothing about it. I used to work at a startup, but Anand, you were there at that time in the industry. You know that our level of awareness was relatively low, or at any rate, my level of awareness was very, very low.
Yeah.
So for
No,
me,
same boat.
So for me, my knowledge of VC was, every month we had a board meeting, and I used to report to the founder. So I would prepare part of the board deck. And it was very intense. The founder would, there was no other document in the company that got so much attention as that monthly board deck.
Yeah.
And the founder would sort of nitpick and say, ye color theek nahi hai, ye font theek nahi hai, ye graph theek karo. And then once in a while, once in 3-4 months, I would be invited to present some product roadmap or something in the board meeting as well. तो वो टाइम भी थोड़ा अलग था. VCs used to wear suits at that time. So I used to. Is everyone comfortable in Hindi also?
Yeah.
So मुझे बहुत glamorous लगता था वो. I go into this meeting. For me, the founder was God, right? He was my boss, and all of us used to listen to him. And he used to listen to the VCs. And, these were people around my age. I was 28, 29 at that time. And these were people around my age. They used to wear smart suits. They used to ask intelligent questions. And our founder used to sort of nod along and take notes. I'd never seen the guy take notes before. So I just thought कि यार ये अच्छा है, ये मैं भी कर सकता हूँ. So and without knowing really anything about VC, it was just frankly just the glamour factor for me. And then very much like Anirudh was mentioning, a new VC fund was getting started in India. This was IDG Ventures. Now they're called Chirate. So they were starting in the beginning of 2007. And a friend of mine, a senior of mine from business school, actually said, "Hey, they are looking for people. Would you be interested?" So I go, "हाँ, ये तो करना है." As it is, the startup wasn't going anywhere. So I went there. I didn't even know I was being interviewed, to be honest. They asked me to sit in on. Actually, this is an interesting story as well. Sorry, it might be a little off topic, but I'll tell you the story of my interview with IDG Ventures, one of the interviews. So first I had these regular HR kind of interviews, which I thought was more to assess my the fit and everything like that. So I had interviews with all the 3 partners at that time. And after that, I was called to attend a company meeting with them. So I thought, मेरा तो हो गया है यहाँ पे. They are asking me to start the work. So I go there. And this was with Alok of Ixigo, Alok Bajpayee of Ixigo. He was pitching Ixigo at the time. So I go in. I was totally unprepared. I thought this is a courtesy kind of thing. So I go in. He does his full pitch, and then the partners at IDG asked me, "What did you think?" And I'm like, मुझसे क्या पूछ रहे हो यार? You guys are the VCs. I'm just here for the for the interaction. So I gave some view. I've never shared with Alok what my view was in that meeting when he pitched. Needless to say, it was wrong. But I think I managed to sound structured enough. And even though I was totally wrong about the industry, I was totally wrong about how the travel industry would pan out in India, and also wrong about how Ixigo's business model would evolve. But I was able to, I think, convey my wrong thoughts in a structured manner. So they made me an offer after that.
Nice.
So that was one more incident before I shut up and hand over the mic back to you.
Ritesh, as long as you are structured, it's okay.
Chalo, theek hai. So when I joined, the day I went to get my offer from IDG, Sudhir, who heads IDG Ventures, he asked me, in his typical style, he calls everyone younger than 45 young man. So he says, young man, so how long do you think you'll stay in venture? So I was not ready to commit full time to venture, to be honest. It was I told you it was driven by glamour more than anything else. So I was truthful with him. I told him, I want to try it for 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, I want to be an entrepreneur. And he was a little upset about it, to be honest. He says, you're coming into a venture firm. Venture careers tend to be long. This is a partner track role. This is not an analyst kind of a role. So I joined as senior associate there. um, and you got to think more before you commit. Anyway, they made me the offer. And about, I would say, a year into the role, I already knew that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my career. So till that point, my career was more exploration. I was trying various things in technology, development, sales, product management. But 1 year into venture, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And since then, I have at least not doubted that this is what I wanted to do. I still don't know whether I'm a good VC or not, but do I enjoy it? Absolutely. So sorry for the long
No, no.
stories.
Thanks,
Back to you,
Ritesh.
Anand.
No, thanks a lot. I mean, a lot of perspective there. What's happening is that I'm also an MBA, right? I mean, so I think one question we should answer quickly around the table is that to reach where you guys are, does everyone need to do an MBA? Ashutosh, what do you think? Now, today somebody is working as an analyst or associate, maybe 2-3 years into the industry. Should they take a break for an MBA or not required today? Has it changed or is it the same?
No, so I think my 2 cents there, Anand, is that some sort of understanding of what a PNL is, and so what are the various lines in there, what are the drivers behind those, is very important. And I would just to give you some flavor, in my pre-MBA life, I used to code, and that was a beautiful life. Everything was in my control, and here nothing's in my control. Once you've written the check, you're probably done. And therefore,
Utna finance we will teach here. That's okay. Ritesh is already working on a lot of other lectures. So
yeah, so I think agar utna aata hai, so my sense is MBA is not teaching you anything that you need specially
not
for
from that
this
perspective.
career. And therefore,
From
if you look at
career perspective, in the sense of growing in a firm and all of that, right? I mean, being eligible to become a partner.
So that slightly depends on the firms also. If you look at within Naspers or Prosus, I probably am the only one who's come this ladder, who's an MBA and has been a VC since. Everyone else has been an operator, and they're investing fine. And I don't see any difference between them and me. Sometimes I feel they're much better equipped than me to, if there's something specific to the sector that they've operated in. So for sure, I don't see it. In my team, we've hired 3 people, 2 of them are not MBAs.
Super. Ashutosh, you are also teaching us a lesson in humility, but ठीक है, मतलब आप चालू रखो. So, you're right. I mean, no, it's a good thing to know, right? It's changed now. Now it's not sort of to grow within a firm. You don't necessarily need MBA as a degree, or like an Ivy League MBA particularly, right? Anirudh, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with Ashu. I think MBA is more about access. That sometimes these brands will give you access to firms which otherwise you may not have access to. So if you already have access to investing, then it really just depends on you as an investor. Because tomorrow, if you've worked on an amazing deal, you've sourced an amazing company, all of those things, or you have a great network, or you're a hustler, etc., I think it really doesn't matter whether you have an MBA or not. So
very nice.
I see. Yeah, I work with junior professionals, and Some of the best ones don't have an MBA. Some of those who have an MBA are also, very, very strong. So both of them are equal
Nice.
in, some have strengths, some have some weaknesses, etc. But if you're a smart person, if you're a first principles thinker, and if you're willing to work hard and learn new things,
No,
I
I
don't
agree,
think
Anirudh.
MBA is
I mean, I agree with you that MBA can only give you access to your first job. If you're already in
correct.
this field, then Ashutosh was
Correct.
right. It's very difficult to get into venture, right? I mean, but if you're
Correct.
already here, you
Correct.
don't necessarily need to take a 2-year break to come back again. I mean, may not necessarily be required. Ritesh,
Unless you want to move out of India, you want to go to the US
possibly.
now. So
True.
yeah.
That's a good point. Ritesh?
Yeah, थोड़ा different perspective है Anand. Not in terms of, not at all in terms of access. I actually think that now access is available. At least when I graduated from my MBA, that was 2003. At that time, there wasn't access. Today, you could not get this kind of a job without an MBA. Today, that access exists. So I don't think, from an access perspective, it is important. But I do think that most jobs that people have before they get into venture tend to be a little tactical. Earlier in your careers, we all do in our careers, we do tactical jobs. And at least to me, what an MBA helped with was to expand my mind a little bit. I told you I was in a sales job, right? So if I would get a $100,000 sale, it would make my year, not just my week or my month, right? So that was my perspective. How to convert this client was my perspective on business in general. It was really the only place where I felt the MBA helped me was in broadening my perspective dramatically. That I stopped being, I was able to think that, okay, even at this young age, I can do bigger things. And that possibly there are other ways, I would imagine if you're founder staff in a startup today, you'd get that perspective from there. So there are other ways to gain that perspective. But I
Ritesh,
do continue to believe that an MBA is a
but
good way to
like
gain that perspective.
for analysts in firms like Stellaris, Sequoia, Excel kind of firms, I mean, there are people who are already in the industry, right? They have some exposure, and they've decided that they like venture, they want to stay in the same industry, right? I mean, that they've realized that. Now, do they need to do MBA to maybe shift a job, maybe explore a few other firms? Should they do that, or they don't need to do it?
So, I mean, for that, I'll give a more tactical perspective, not this mind expansion kind of perspective, which is that either you should have some operating experience prior to the VC job, or I think an MBA still helps.
Okay.
Because otherwise, all you have is your analyst experience to fall back on in terms of your business judgment. That business judgment has to come from somewhere, right? It can't come from just deal sourcing. Right. And I do think that it either comes from operating experience or it comes from
So Ritesh,
some formal training.
I would say that you could replace an MBA with a startup stint, or maybe trying to be a co-founder in one startup. I mean, without that, maybe, but otherwise, I feel that things will change. I mean, people are now access to content and reading and experiences is so high that probably going forward, all of this broadening of experiences and everything can come without an MBA. Including stuff that we are trying to do here, right? I mean, yeah. Yes,
sorry,
sir.
just one quick point, Anand, and to Ritesh's point, I also feel that if you are joining a firm as an analyst, probably you're not supposed to have the most sound, most optimal judgment day one.
Yeah.
After you sit in some of those board meetings over the next 1 year, 2 year, that's when you learn from like 5 other people like yourself sitting in those meetings and suggesting strategic changes and all of that. Now, for me, I think that was and as I was telling you, my first meeting was with this gaming company with Subrata, and I was like, dude, what is this guy? Every question that Subrata would ask, and I'm like, why did I not think of this question? Right? This is the most logical question. I'm asking some random shit. What is TAM? What is number of users? This, that, some very generic stuff. And I think once you've been in those situations enough with people at a different level in their career, wo thoda aa jayega over a period of time.
Right. So the question
I
here
totally
was,
agree. And
yeah,
I think what is crucial here is that the firm should be willing to invest in you to develop that business judgment. वो अपने आप नहीं आता है.
Ritesh, you are
If the
right.
firm puts you in a board meeting with the founders, that is where you learn. Or if the firm puts you in the diligence process where you are actually the one asking questions to third-party experts about the industry, you are interfacing with the entrepreneur during the diligence process. So I do think that it is incumbent upon the firm also to invest in the analyst to develop their business judgment. But apart from that, if it is only if you are mainly doing sourcing, I think it is hard to develop that business judgment because you're very tactical. Then you're thinking of how do I find the next guy and the next guy and the next guy.
So Ritesh, does it mean that for an analyst, right, not an associate, there are a few associates also here, for an analyst to be able to see the path to a partner track, right, an MBA would be sort of a better optionality, increased chances? Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily. I actually fully agree with you, Anand, that a startup stint would actually substitute very well for an MBA.
Got it. Yeah, that I feel so. But Ritesh, my own journey, I worked for 2 years, started a company in Jan 2000, fag end of the dot-com boom, and ran out of money in 3-4 days. I mean, I actually burnt all my 2 rounds of funding money in 6 months, right? I mean, so I think I can teach all of these Bangalore Janta lesson or two in how to burn money fast, right? 2 round of funding हमने 6 महीने में खत्म कर दिया, and however, we decided not to go back to our jobs. So we started bootstrapping, and that bootstrap company became the version 2.0, and we raised another funding round after 4 years of bootstrapping in 2005. And, I took a secondary exit from that round because I wanted to sell the company, and my other co-founders, I mean, of course, they were better entrepreneurs than me. One of them is Supam Maheshwari of First Cry. They decided to stay on. I mean, the company didn't go very far, but they had chosen to be an entrepreneur. I got out and tried to do something else, another entrepreneurship stint, but stumbled upon the guy who had funded me earlier in 2000, Praveen Gandhi. He was setting up a fund called Seed Fund. I mean, I wasn't sure. So for me, it was like 3 months ka trial karunga main. I'm anyways doing my own startup. I'll give part-time trial. If I like it, I'll wind up my business and I'll join full-time. I liked it. And I mean, I didn't know what the VC ka role is because this was 2007. So there were not too many examples to learn from. In fact, I learned a lot more from people like Subrata in 2012. I wasn't interacting with people till then, and I thought I was an operator VC. For example, my partner Gagan, who's thankfully joined me in spite of the aggressive experience he had with me. I would try to be the operator VC. I would say, "Ye karo, wo karo, ye karo, wo karo," and report back to me. Right? So that's how I used to deal with my fund. Good lesson learned there. And in 3 years, I realized that I should not be doing that. It took me full 3 years to realize that I need good people who don't need anything instruction from me, who will tell me to back off and do their own thing and just come back to me if they really want me. Otherwise, they'll just ask me to back off. The people who asked me to back off made a lot of money for us. So,
but I think for most of the people, मेरा suggestion यही है कि if you want, you have the time, you have this thing, probably do an MBA because there's a lot of firms who will ask. Boss, I need a MBA from Ivy School.
No, as a career choice, Ashutosh, is a good option, right? Absolutely good option. Particularly if you are committed to the VC path and yet want to make a job shift, you might as well, right? If you are, however, in a good pace, a good space, and you see the path, then you probably don't need to, right? I mean, then maybe then maybe the discussion should be between you and your MD, whoever who's your mentor in the firm, right? I mean, you need to do it or not. But many of you can skip it. I feel it's an option to skip today. Probably 10 years ago, I don't think it was an option. Right? I saw very few non-MBAs entering the industry 10 years ago.
I think, Anand, I have a point of view on this. So basically, there are 2 parts to this question, right? One is that if you're not already in the industry, then do you require an MBA? I think for that, if you don't already have some spike on your CV or some brand name or
Agree.
something, right?
Or a
Then for
good
that,
start.
MBA may be
Yeah.
useful.
Good point.
If you're already in the industry, then I feel that our industry is so you have to be so self-driven that, you know, like I'll give you my example. My first week at Canon, I was, I think, 24 or 25 at that time. My first week at Canon, I was just chilling in office on a Wednesday, just having lunch or something, and then Alok walks up and says, "What are you doing in the office?" So till that time, I did not realize that, you know, I have to be out and meeting founders, or like literally first, you know, and at that time it wasn't as structured as it is right now, that, you know, you have forums where you can speak to other people. And so so that's how I realized that, yeah, I have to be out there, and this is, you know, I was learning along so the point is that you have to be, if you're already in a VC fund, it, you know, even if they tell you that, no, we don't have a partner track, or, you know, this is your job, that your job is sourcing. And I've seen these cases where someone was told that someone who happened to be a junior was that, okay, this, your job is sourcing, so please focus on that.
Right.
And my advice to that person was, listen, don't worry about what they tell you, just do what you want to do, which is beyond sourcing, and just prove your worth. And if you do a good job, and that's a beauty, and that's a pro and con of our industry, that you have to be very self-driven. So if you do a good job, they will be forced to look at you, and they will be forced to promote you. So even if you are told very categorically that, yeah, we don't have a partner track, then maybe not the same firm, but if you've done a good job, if you've got a good name in the market, there's no way that you won't get some opportunities. I mean,
no, I want to ask at least one or two of you about, you know, how did you make your first move, right? I mean, you all of you haven't stuck at the same firm. When did you make your first move, and what was the reason behind it? I mean, did you? I mean, obviously you wanted to stay in the same industry, so hence you moved to a different firm. So, Anirudh, we can start with you.
No, as I mentioned, my first move, or I don't know what it was. It was, my internship was at GA. That's how I got my taste of investing, and I really liked the lifestyle. I was in Narman Point, 14th floor, overlooking the Arabian Sea, and big fancy offices. I was like, this is exactly what I want. And so that's how I, you know, so that's, and obviously investing as a job itself seemed interesting. But then you know, later on, as I told you the story of that message to Kunal, and because I knew him through CIIE, he said that there is this opening at Canon, are you interested? And then that's when, so you know, that was the first time I heard of a VC. That's when I really kind of spent time on VC, what it is about, and I looked it up, and I got a case study for as part of my interview process, where Alok's only what he told me was that his only instruction was that find any early stage company and do some analysis on it and submit an investment recommendation on it, some 2-3 pages of Word doc. Now, I was at Deloitte, I was doing oil and gas. I had no clue what tech is, and, you know, it's very hard to find. So as part of that process, I had a week's time for that. So as part of that process, I ended up figuring out through some network, some early stage company. I did the analysis on it, and I really enjoyed the process of that analysis. Just figuring out, because I was thinking about this opportunity, this company, and then suddenly it struck me, okay, this should be my recommendation, right? It was almost like solving a puzzle. So I really enjoyed it. And thankfully I got the job after that. But the point is that at that point I realized that, okay, this is something which is actually very, very interesting, and it's very intellectually very, you know, stimulating. So that was but yes, it was purely happenstance. It was purely serendipity that I happened to message Kunal, and he responded.
Got it. I have a lot of questions. I will not repeat the questions, right? I'll take a different question to Ashutosh. Ashutosh, tell us about your first time you got to lead an investment, right? Where you sort of were the prime mover. Of course, there must have been an investment committee. We all have. But first time you got to lead, how did you get there? And how did you feel? How was the experience of leading your first deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I just wanted to spend 1 minute on your previous question, Anand, before this, because I thought, I think and rather than sort of answering the why I made the move, I would rather say how I made the move, which probably will be more interesting for folks on this call. it was very clear I wanted to make a move for whatever reasons.
Okay.
And at that time, industry was very small. This is 2012, not like today, wherein, and so there was no sort of hiring. So you got to, there's this seduction dance that you had to dance to seduce whoever you wanted to. And I think the one opportunity I got was on the board of a company that I used to sort of be an observer on, and two very big shots were on that board as well. And I think my whole focus was how to ensure that I look like the smartest guy in this sort of boardroom.
Nice.
And over the next couple of board meetings, 2 quarters, one of them took me aside and said, "Look, I have a place for you. Why don't you come and join me?" And that's how I ended up in Norwest. But coming back to your question, I think it was very difficult, Anand, from being a VP at Norwest, wherein I was part of the team, but I was not necessarily sponsoring the deal, to now leading a deal, and that too from being used to putting 5-10 millions to now talking about putting $60 million. It was a very difficult. So my first investment at Naspers took me a year before I could make that recommendation. And even after making that recommendation, I could not sleep at night. And this is too much money to be putting in one deal, and it was very difficult. I think my entire framework at that time was that, boss, I don't want to invest in something which is, and this is my suggestion, and maybe I'm wrong here, for everyone who's moving in this phase, is to make slightly less riskier bets upfront. The first one or two, once you have enough political capital within your firms, then probably is a good time to make some of the sort of riskier bets. So my first one was Swiggy. I already knew the company a little bit, but I still did a lot of work, 6 months of work, and I was alone here at Naspers at that point in time. Bunch of ref checks, bunch of calls. My first memo was 180 pages, word pages. And so I didn't want to leave anything to chance. Thankfully, that was a time when, of course, time hota tha. People used to give you 6 months to due diligence. Up to nobody gives you. So, but yeah, took a lot of time, took a lot of effort. Every piece I looked at, every piece of information, every piece of feedback from ex-employees, current employees. After that, the second one was Baiju. And after both of them started doing okay, then I had enough, let's say, political capital, also conviction in my picking capabilities to then start doing much more, much sooner.
Ashutosh, I took 3 years to do my first deal, right? I mean, I was already like, how old was I? I think I was 35 already the time I did my first deal, but I had to sort of, I said everybody will eat what they hunt. So if I hunt, and I made sure that, I don't hunt for other partners in the firm. I was a partner, but I was the youngest in that group. And I would end up sourcing for other partners because they'll say I have the expertise and all of that. I said, oh, this time, this deal, I'm going to lead it, and I had to sort of a little bit of initiative and a little bit of political push maneuvering I had to do to get in my first lead, like deal and be the board member and all of that. It took 2.5, 3 years to get there. Ritesh, I have a question for you. Somebody's asked about, like, sorry, there was a question when
मैं उसी पे आंसर कर रहा था कुछ questions.
हाँ. So if you can, okay, you answered already, right?
Yeah.
Thanks. So I think Tarika's question was interesting. MBA networking. I think, Tarika, networking now has to be outside MBA also now. I think this is also networking. What you're doing right now. So okay, I'll not ask you. I have my.
Sorry, Anand, just on that MBA networking point, it just reminded me of one thing. My very, very strong recommendation to people here would be, if you're thinking of an MBA, please don't do it from India.
Good point.
Please go abroad, because the IIMs, whatever, A, B, C, L, X, Y, Z. I mean, there is just a night and day difference between the exposure you get in India versus the exposure you get abroad. So
No,
just aim
and if
high
you're
and
already,
yeah,
agree, Anirudh, if one is spending 2 years, right, and particularly to advance in this career, then might as well do outside in a Ivy League, right?
exactly.
Good
Yeah.
point. My team members have some questions to ask, guys. Apurva, you want to go?
Yeah. So guys, I think this is quite relevant to the current discussion also. After 1-2 years at a VC, everybody has to make this decision. So one thing that helps in making this decision is, to know how invested the partners of the current fund are in your career growth. How do you decide that? And based on that, you will take the decision to go for an MBA, or if that's not an option, start up or start your own fund. But how do you decide that?
Ask them.
Sorry, ask them.
You could have a conversation with them.
Good
This
point.
is straight
I
up.
think
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no, that was it. I was just saying that I think it's in my opinion, it's if partners are invested in you, or if the firm is invested in you, it will certainly be communicated to you as a professional, and you'll probably be given more responsibility. You'll be shown some sort of track, etc. But I genuinely think that it's the best. Even though you may be young and you may have some apprehension, etc. But I do think that if the firm is thinking of you from a long term in a long term manner, they will make it amply clear to you. As Ritesh also pointed out, right? Like as in his interview process at IDG, Sudhir asked him, "What's your commitment? How long are you thinking?" etc. So I think it's something worth having a conversation on. Maybe not when you join, but maybe once you've proven yourself.
Maybe like 2 years once
Yeah.
you've proven something about what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a good
Apurva
point.
Also, I think in some of these funds are very structured. So
some are
there
not,
is precedence. Yeah, if there is precedence, it's very clear.
Right.
What's going to happen. If there is no precedence, completely agree with Anirudh. Just ask.
Yeah. No, I think the problem is that there are very few funds who have a track, right? I mean, like Sequoia, Excel, etc. Have a clear track of that growth, but some other funds haven't had that just because of them being very young, right? So it's a good question to ask. Maybe around 1.5-2 years is a good time frame to prove yourself and then pose this question. Okay, Shruti, you had a question?
Yep. So we spoke about gaining some operational experience. Before you went out to become your own fund managers, was that a choice you had to make? Was there a choice of, say, starting up and building a business on your own versus doing your own fund?
At least not in my case, Shruti. I think I had enough skills. I felt at that point in time that I can pick well, right? So there is two aspects of investing in my view. One is you pick, and then two is you manage / value add. Now, I think the ability to pattern match helps you pick, and I think that's where I was kind of clear. On the second piece also, if it's more of a if you're more an early stage investor, I feel that's where that operation or operating experience is very helpful. But in our case, I was always meaning to be a late stage growth kind of investor. By when the operational issues are largely sorted, and it's sort of much more sort of strategic questions that people are thinking, and therefore it was not very relevant to me.
Hey, Ritesh, do you think that, as early stage, because I have a slightly different point of view now, right? I mean, Ashutosh is right that we are supposed to add value, but I've changed my view and I feel that, today for us also, pattern matching is more important. And founders are so sorted nowadays, the ecosystem is so well developed, there are enough mentors outside that we are not necessarily like, we don't have to be experts or, really guiding forces in companies. I mean, we will also be better off if we simply focus on picking and pattern matching rather than, of course, our pattern matching is slightly different, in more softer aspects and more subjective data based pattern matching, but we are better off just focusing on that. What do you think?
So actually, I agree with both of you and have a third perspective as well, which is that. So first of all, I also think that VC value add is overrated here at any
Yeah,
stage.
absolutely.
The biggest value add a VC can make is to not add negative value. Um,
Yeah.
so at least I have that in my mind all the time while suggesting. I think it is very important to always convey to the entrepreneur that all decisions are their decisions. At best, we can give our suggestions, but not try to impose our views on the entrepreneur. And also, what we think is a massive value add. I actually did a little informal survey last year or early this year when I asked entrepreneurs what was funded entrepreneurs what was important to them, and I think value add came number 6 or number 7 in that list.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so I don't think entrepreneurs, and one of the senior entrepreneurs in the industry actually said that what VCs think is value add and what entrepreneurs believe is value add is two completely different things. We think we have connected the guy. I know a friend
Yeah.
in Reliance and I say मैं आपको Reliance से connect कर दूंगा. This guy said that that is not influence. That is access. वो access मुझे खुद भी मिल जाती है. Either you connect me, either you connect me to someone who will listen to me and I'll be able to sell the product because of your influence in the company. That is valuable. But just that connection is actually not valued by entrepreneurs at all. And that is actually the number one value add that all of us try to make in the companies. And it was sobering to hear that that is not valued by entrepreneurs. There are a few others. All of us think we are smart at strategy, but I have actually seen that founders implement our strategic inputs only when they happen to agree with them already. Uh,
Yeah.
Otherwise, they listen to it to be polite to us, and then they go and do what they think is right, which is as it should be. So, fully agree with actually both of you. And Ashu, I think even at an early stage, I think value add is overrated or overvalued. But I also think that even picking skills are not the most important skills. There are marginal calls in our industry, and I would imagine that in later stages, the marginal calls become more important. I'm sure, Ashu, when you were picking between Swiggy and Zomato, it would have been a marginal call because both companies are good. It's not as if one really stands out, or if one is picking between, I don't know, a Mintra and a Nika or whatever. Those are marginal calls. But at an early stage, I think many calls, the really good companies stand out. The really good companies, I think, do not depend on our picking skills. They are, in my mind, blindingly obvious opportunities. Uh, what is harder to me is access, which is sourcing. This is obviously not a problem at a later stage, but an early stage, I think access is a very big question. And second, uh, uh, the brand or being able to convince, even if you do have the access, how do you ensure that the best guy takes your check rather than someone else's check? So at an early stage, at least, I think these two uh, are the most important, followed by picking skills, followed by value add. But fully agree that value add is a little overrated across stages.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's good to know because I think historically too much has been talked about the value add, and a lot of analysts feel the pressure to sort of add value. And I think the best value is to sort of just listen. I think this is what we discussed in the last lecture. Ritesh, you were not there. We had Priyank and Bejul saying that listening is the best skill, and this is what you can offer. So, okay, Visa Ray has a question. Visa.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. So basically, it would be directed to both all of you. The first question and the second question to Anand and Ritesh here because they set up a fund. One is that for an analyst and associate level, right? How do you kind of build your personal brand? Because that is something that seems to be super important, right? Basically, because there are too many out there, right? And the second question is that, Ritesh, coming to your point, saying that, you know, sometimes entrepreneurs do not want much of an value add here, right? Because there is a kind of a thin line between holding hands and letting them be too, right? But then there are these many funds that are being set up, right? So what is then the access to capital for a founder kind of has increased further up, right? And that's where the value add kind of makes more sense, right? The capital plus plus model that seems to be coming out here. So just want to understand, how does that kind of play out, right? If on the based on the comment that you both made here, right?
Ritesh.
So, Visa, I'll answer the second question. I was actually reading the comments on the chat, so I could not pay attention to the first question.
Okay.
I actually am not a big believer at all in the capital plus plus model. Either you have the resources of an Andreessen Horowitz and you are able to set up a 200-member team to actually do the work. That's really capital plus plus. A VC partner, giving gyan to the founder in a board meeting is not capital plus plus at all in my mind. Us saying that, hey, maybe you should consider that company's model from China. That is not capital plus plus. That is content. And the other way in which this manifests itself is, so one is the strategy. The other way is we say, okay, I will connect you to my friend here. And like I've already mentioned, at least I have not seen those. And let me actually tell you what the founders actually told me. And I spoke to about, it was not a small sample set. I spoke to about 15, 16 founders over the phone. And then I did a Twitter survey of about 200 odd respondents. So at least I have a fair amount of confidence in the findings. I think by far the number one thing that came out was empathy. And that is driven by founders having gotten burnt a lot. Like I was saying, the biggest value you can add is to not add negative value. So the number one rule, pardon my French, but one senior founder told me that the biggest value add an investor, a VC can make is to not be an asshole. Which really hit home, because all of us have seen those kind of VCs in the boardroom, right? So number one was empathy, followed by, if actually I might not be exactly right, but followed by process, which is followed by conviction, which was very, very clearly number two.
Yeah.
Which is that, do you believe in me through thick and thin? And that manifests itself in hard ways and soft ways. The hard ways are, let's say you have, while writing the check, the first check, do you give a conditional term sheet or do you give a full term sheet? Do you say that I will come in if someone else is in? Or do you say I'm in no matter what, and now go build your business, we'll see if someone else is in? Or once you're already in the company, when the company goes for the next round, are you the first to put a stake in the ground and say, you're going to raise $6 million, no matter what, I'm going to put in $2 million out of that, or $3 million out of that. That gives confidence to a founder. That tells the founder that you have the conviction in his business. So that came out as number two. And number three, I'll not go through all of those, but number three was process, which is, can you run a tight process? Can you make progress in every meeting with the founder? As opposed to, one of the things that I learned that founders hate is hierarchy in a VC firm. So they are perfectly happy talking to an analyst and an associate and a VP and a director and a partner, but they don't want this to happen sequentially.
Right. Hey, let me flip this question to Ashutosh. Ashutosh, what do you think would be a capital plus plus, a desirable capital plus plus at your stage?
Yeah, so I think in our stage, I completely agree with Ritesh, right? As expecting a single person, a partner, whoever is on your board to be able to provide all sorts of help is just not possible. I think we can give you some some meta information from China, US, and especially for us and other funds who invest internationally, we can get, oh, Brazil mein ye ho gaya tha, wahan ye ho gaya tha. Emerging economies, so should happen similar. But I think what we are trying to do, and this is not like a shameless plug or anything, but we are trying to really add other people as part of our operational support team, to the extent that we're trying to help our portfolio with ESOP structuring, compensation benchmarking. So if 2 people working on that, there's 5 people, recruitment team. So CXO recruitment, we can help. We have a roster of people who are sitting in the US ready to come back. If you need it, we can provide, connect you with them. Public policy team, there's 3 people sitting in Delhi helping liaison with the government. Especially at our stage, I think these things all become very meaningful.
Nice. Very interesting. Interesting. Hey, guys, if you give me 3-4 minutes extra, I just have one last question to each of you. It's about, how do you personally invest in your own learning to stay relevant, because our industry is changing dramatically. I mean, even for Ashutosh to do the, I mean, Naspers has been setting the benchmark for valuations, but even then, right? I mean, how do you stay relevant? And how do you catch up with how the world is changing, right? You start with Ashutosh, then Anirudh, and finally Ritesh.
I think there has to be some sort of underlying value and underlying belief system on that you as a firm and you as a partner sort of adhere to. In a good cycle like now, or in a bad cycle probably that came before, or that's going to come soon. And to my mind, I think that's the only way one differentiates. And I'll give you just one example. It's easy for us to do it because there's sort of long-term balance sheet capital. There is no hurry to exit and all. We will support these companies in sort of good time, bad time, till the time we feel it's a good business. Of course, I mean, if we over time figure out it's not a good business, of course not. But I think that's something that we promise, and we have in 90% of the cases delivered on that promise.
No, I like that value system point, because that is the key driver of how we will behave personally also, right? I mean, what we will do, what actions we'll do. Ashutosh, tell us about your reading habits. What do you listen to? How do you learn? Do you have people, friends? Do you learn from them?
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. So I try and talk a lot, and sort of this is kind of similar sort of quick answer to the lady who asked the other question, is how to build your own brand. I think it's a very different ways. Totally depends on you. I have seen people who are sort of massive hustlers, networkers. So unka sourcing nobody can beat. So that's their brand. I can source everything in Bangalore. There's not a single deal I don't know. Right? Kisi ka brand hai. I have all this data. I crunch data. I find insights, and I put them on Twitter. Is bande ko pata hai is sector ke bare mein, and so on, etc., etc. So yeah, I love to talk to my friends like Anirudh and others, and sort of just be in the know of the things. And then I read a lot, and my reading has changed over time from complete fiction to complete non-fiction now. But even within non-fiction, sort of variety of topics.
Super. Anirudh?
So should I answer the question on reading habits?
Reading habits, how do you invest in yourself, your own learning and your own, how do you stay relevant in the VC world?
So to me, I think one is you always have to keep going out of your comfort zone. Paul Graham, writes that very interesting blog. So one of the blog posts which I read was that the best ideas seemed like the worst ideas when they started out. Airbnb, Twitter, which Norwest, Ashu and my previous firm ended up passing on, among many other firms which ended up passing on them. Uber, in India you have Flipkart, right, which was passed on by everybody who you've heard of. So the best companies do seem like the worst ones, and therefore it takes you need to be humble, and you need to know that you don't know everything. So to stay relevant, it's often important to meet ideas or companies you don't necessarily agree with, or which go completely against everything that you think about a certain sector, or you have whatever your point of view is. So I think it's very important to keep going out of your comfort zone. And the second thing is, reading is important. Not that I've been able to read a whole lot, but I reading books on investing, especially on books based on fundamental investing, books based on philosophy, life philosophies related to investing, and many other different types of topics, not necessarily related to investing, because I do also think that if you have a different area, that kind of adds value in some form or the other. So I think, different
No, Anirudh,
varied types of topics.
I like your advice of stepping out of comfort zone. Normally, what I have seen is that some of us, including myself, the initial reaction to some company succeeding is कि यार वो लोग कुछ मतलब high burn कर रहे हैं, they're inefficient, it'll collapse, right? I mean, that's how you sort of you missed a company and you want to seek comfort from that. Some other firm has made a wrong decision, right? Because you're competitive, you said no to that deal, the company is doing well. But I would rather be better to actually say, okay, what are they doing right? Why did I miss it? And what is the logical thinking, and what if I have to actually invest in that company, how would have caught it, right? I mean, I would have said like thought differently. And it's very important because bulk of the times we say no to deals, and our list of misses is like 20x bigger than the list of our picks, right? Always. And it's sort of it is important to
And
step
I'll
out
tell
and
you,
learn.
and Anand, the problem is that a lot of times when you've just started out in the industry, the 2-year mark, I feel, is very dangerous, because at that time you think you know everything, but you actually don't. You never know everything. That's obviously there. But at that, when you're junior, and this happened to me, so I speak from personal experience, that, you feel very confident in your judgment and you feel that aise yoga. But, as you grow older, you realize that, nine out of 10 times I'll be wrong. So I should be willing to contradict myself on, things. So that just, being aware of that I could be wrong, or
No,
all of
I
that. That's
faced that
important.
moment, Anirudh, not because I thought, because I faced the practical problem. We started India Quotient, and our first cohort of first 10, 12 companies, not a single one got a follow-on round because nobody liked what we did. Nobody at all, right? And that was a very humbling experience, because we learned that what we are investing is without considering at all as to what the next round of investors want to look at. We have completely ignored, right? And not thought about that at all, right? I mean, we've simply thought that, okay, we know everything and we don't need to think of the perspective of the follow-on investor, right? I mean, and then actually I went around, built relationships, spoke to people as to what do you look for in a company. And not only just speaking is one part. I studied their company. Okay, why did they make this investment? Why did they make this investment? And started profiling firms, profiling individuals, and learned a lot about the process. And since then we've not faced that problem. It was a very humbling experience to sort of look back at what you have done and analyze critically. Ritesh, you were smiling, so last comments from you, and then we'll wind up.
Sure. No, yeah, I agree with on what it takes to succeed in venture. I think I agree with all of you, and there are many different ways. I think it is important though to find your own way. What is your edge? What do you because it is increasingly a competitive industry. If you don't know your own edge, and with uh, uh, especially in the early stage. See, in the late stage, your edge is the dollars you can deploy. So I do think that edge is super important. But at an early stage, it is important to know what you bring to the table. Some people bring, a phenomenal network or sourcing capability. Some people bring deep domain expertise. Some people, some people bring top-down thinking, and I would say forward thinking, having a point of view on what will work 5 years from now. And if you're right 2 times out of 10, I think that is phenomenal. But I think, and so there are many ways to skin that cat, but it's important to know which is your way, and that comes, I think, with mistakes that we make. But yeah, nothing more to add.
Super. Thank you so much, Ritesh. Really appreciate. Visa, you still have our question sign on. Can we skip
One
and
to
move on?
both of you again. What were you guys thinking when you started off your respective funds, Ritesh and both you and Anand, both of you guys? what was the idea behind it? What was it that you were trying to chase, or what is it that you were trying to fill in, apart from capital or whatever that is? Yeah.
Ritesh?
So Visa, we started our fund in 2016. And to be honest, it was just appearing to be such a massive opportunity that we would have been fools to not start a fund at that time. So for us, my partners and I, it was that. And the aha moment for us was uh, Rahul and I did one research. We had nothing to do. How much time can you spend fundraising? To be honest, so we just wanted to learn about this new segment that was coming online, uh, and my mind was blown talking to that group of people. And as you can probably see, I'm a big believer in primary research. So when we spoke to the new internet users that had come online in the recent past at that time, I was like, there are hundreds of millions of such people coming online, and nobody is building for them. Uh, uh, you know, this is going to be India internet is going to be really, really large. And then for a couple of years, it looked like that was going to be a pipe dream. 2016, if those of you who were in the industry at that time, people are saying Flipkart band ho jayegi. Those kind of things were happening. But I do think that what is happening now is hopefully a vindication of the optimism that we had then.
Yeah.
So for us, it was just the opportunity, and we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity our way and start an early stage fund. That was my partners and I, our reason.
For me, Visa, it was just I missed a few important deals. First one I missed for my fund was Rebel Foods. I ended up doing it personally, but I put all the money I had into Rebel Foods. Then I got this deal of Lenskart, and I had actually an offer to be made to Lenskart for 3 crore rupees, 30%. This is before IDG came in Lenskart. This is 2000, late 2010. So late 2011. And I just basically felt that I just need a different setting where even today in our firm, an individual can decide a investment, right? It's not like investment committee or consensus, right? So we became anti-consensus, not just outside, but also within the firm, right? So one guy has to like it a lot. Is far more important than all three of us liked, right? So mainly that. I mean, I just wanted to do my own stuff, and and eventually my other partners, Gagan and Madhukar, have joined me not because they like my views on their deals. They want to do their own stuff. That's why they're there with me. So that's how it is. That's about it. Right? Nothing else.
Got it. Thanks.
Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate Ashutosh, Anirudh. We will have you again. We want to have some speakers to discuss valuations with us. And both of you write 100 million plus checks. Anirudh खाली बोलता है कि छोटे मोटे चेक लिखता है, but I think he's also competing with Ashutosh now, the bigger checks. So
completely. I feel outcompeted.
Outcompeted, right? So no. I think we will probably, if you guys are available in the next 3-4 weeks, we will have you on board.
Happy to.
Perfect.
Sounds
Bye, guys.
good.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.